promised, I'm going to do the seven deadly fallen princes, and it goes off of the seven deadly sins. Welcome to this page. This is where I speak real. There is a connection to what I'm going to say, from the seven sins to the seven fallen sisters, or the sisters of the underworld, and then of course the fallen princess, or what they call the seven princes of hell. There's a lot of research on it, but there's a connectivity that theories have been backed, religious doctrine, as well as some of the not just Christian, but you get in the Torah and the Quran, even down to paganistics, mythologies and theologies. And so there's a theory that comes across that, for your soul, for enlightenment, Buddhism, Zen, you hear it from the monks as well. So I am Scandinavian, so they call me the Scandinavian seeress, which means somebody that is super in touch with the nature, but nobody's ever a master fully. We're always growing and developing. So I'm going to dive right in. And so I want to recap a little again. So I'm going to recap each one, and then, believe it or not, you'll notice at the end, I'll send you all the way back, but then there'll be a connectivity. So we're going to be doing the 3 dark sides, which is your 7 deadly sins. And they are pride. I go backwards on the 7 deadly sins. Pride, which is more of a conceited, no regard for anybody else, all about themselves. 6 is envy, and that is being jealous, extreme desire to cause major ill. Envy is probably one of the worst ones that you'll see, where you want what other people have, and you will actually wish, like, I wish they were out of the way and I'd be in the picture. Then you have 5, which is wrath. And wrath is something that takes 2 parts of that. That is a hate. So you physiologically hate something or someone, and then your anger is your emotional or your physical expression of that hate. And 4 is sloth. Sloth is all about procrastination, and this is a procrastination to failure to thrive, to move forward, to further your soul in enlightenment. It's not just procrastination because I didn't feel like taking out the trash today. No, this is a further procrastination of, I need to keep furthering up. I need to keep doing better myself over and over. And so then you decide to not to. 3 is greed, and greed is all about being materialistically driven, that's all you want is materialistical gain. And you will do anything to conquer somebody to get that gain. 2 is gluttony. Gluttony, I know a lot of people are thinking it's just because you're overweight, and it's all like those that are gorging on food, but it's actually an overindulgence, and this is the one that is most closely linked to addiction. And then, of course, 1 is the top of the top, and that is lust. And lust is a very obsessiveness, but lust will entail many of the other sins to be able to become very domineering. And lustful is becoming, like I said, OCD, control. And that is the control and power one. Then we moved off, and that is the 7 deadly sins. And we had to do the 7 of the sisters of the underworld. And these are the ones that connect to each one. So they are crafted, as well as the 7 fallen princes. I'll show you that they all have their own realm, and their realm is the 7 deadly sins. So you have your 7 sisters of the underworld, and that is deceit. Her real name is Clothod, and she is the deceiver. So she approaches the pride. So pride is more of her realm. And then you have strife, which is your second, and she is more of the realm of wrath. And so she is really quick into get men anger, expression to fight. And then once they get the anger and the hate, then they are really physically fighting. Deceit is all about conflict from internal. 3 is Rebos, and she's battle. Her name is really battle, and she focuses on gluttony. Corruption from the men from inside, and gluttony is all about that, overindulgence, whatever it is. So Rebos is all about the addiction part. 4th is Obezuth, and that is the winged dragon. Now the winged dragon, this one leads, it's jealousy. But this is the one that focuses more in the realm of envy, leading man off the straight path, to crave things that other people have, and to crave something that they will use another sin or another evil to gain. Then you have Inepsigos, and that is she's in the realm of greed, She's overthrowing the kingdom. She likes to, take what other people have. She don't care. She wants it, and she'll do whatever she can to get man to want it. So her realm is more of the greed. And then you have tribu Boleos. So Tribuleos. Okay. And she is air. And she focuses more of sloth. And these are the ones that really are procrastinating. So they procrastinate. They'll commit ethical, moral deceit and division within. And so her focus is really getting you to second guess yourself and to cause you to actually go against your own morality and your own souls. And then, of course, 7 is Canopaston, and they call her that because it's all about control. That's the word for control, but her name, she actually doesn't have one because she's the one that's most focused on lust. And lust is all about being obsessive and controlling over all realms. She focuses more on that lust part, and so she's one of the ones that they label, Solomon even did, as being one of the most dangerous. Because she didn't speak much at all, and as we go on, there'll be another video on offerings and certain herb mixes and certain prayers that you can say to keep these ones at bay or to get them to turn away. And hers, she would not, even under the most extreme prayer and the highest of archangels, would she not give up her secret, her weakness. So now let's move on to the princess. Now the princesses are fallen princess. Now, when they fell, they were in heaven. So there's a lot of discussion of, were they evil? Were they not? The first fallen prince was Lucifer, and in its name itself, prince means that they were royalty up there. And in many denominations, from mythology to my Scandinavian, we would deem that as Asgardians. And there is another realm up in our mythology. Is there was 2 realms in the higher world, in what you guys would, what Christianity would deem as heaven, and they battled, and then one got over, and Asgardians, they are the ones that ended up winning. And then the ones that didn't, that's where Freya comes in. They could actually come and be a Asgardians, or they would have to go down to a lower realm, which kind of leads into this story as well. So same thing with Greek mythology, and then when you would have Horus going down into the other, and then you would have hell that was watching over the underworld. So in Christianity, you're talking about the 7 fallen princes, and the 7 fallen princes. The first one, of course, is Lucifer. Many people will get Lucifer and Satan mixed up, but they are not. They are 2 separate entities or beings. So you can look at this in Revelations, but also in Genesis, they are named in through there. Same with Leviticus. Leviticus is a huge chapter on a lot of the fallen princes. And that's because the Leviathan would be in there. So let me move on to what Lucifer was. So many people, like I said, got Lucifer and Satan mixed up. And they're not the same person, but they are separate demons in itself. So Lucifer is the sin of pride. So he is the most linked up to pride, because he was thrown out of heaven because of it. And a lot of the others came after him. Other demons, like, they definitely followed his path, and he became the ringleader of what they call the demons of the underworld. Now, he's unique because his story, and it's been noted in the Torah and Quran's bits and pieces, but in the Torah of Lilith. So his wife is Lilith. Now, Lilith is what they would name as the supreme empress of hell, but she was, and in Genesis it has been noted that she was the first wife of Adam, but Adam was not pleased with her because they had a dispute of who was right. Well, and who was dominating at that point, who would be on top, who would not be on top. And the stories can go back, and they had a disagreement, and she left. And instead of going to chasing her and trying to make it right, he asked God for somebody that was a little bit more for him. Someone that was more docile, that was not so argumentative, that would let him lead. which actually, if you want to go into that whole story, we can talk about the snake and how Eve got coaxed into having the apple, which led them astray. So maybe coaxing and having somebody to lead is probably not the best. Maybe you should have somebody that can be constructive with you. But anyway, so the story was that Lilith was his first wife. She left. He didn't. He chose to choose somebody else, and eventually everybody was kicked out of the Garden of Eden. But Lucifer, when he fell, he came down. He was cast down. Him and Lilith got married, and then they ruled the underworld. They ruled the underworld together, or hell. Then you have Satan. Now Satan, he became what they call the craze because of the witchcraft and his name. And so if that gives you any hint of where the spell casting and all of that, it was Satan. He was believed to whisper into ears and lead them astray, show them alchemy, spells to cast, try to sway. And the story was that Satan was the one that was the snake in the Garden of Eden, to be able to prove that Eve was gullible and Eve would be exactly what she was designed to be, somebody that would follow and wouldn't use constructive criticism as much, or constructive thoughts or processing. And so he was often associated with that story, and being Lucifer's right-hand man, why he had his arms around the left side would be Lilith. And Lilith was known in biblical that she was a protector of babies, but then as it got transmuted and she was married to Lucifer, they said that they would have to give 150 babies to her under her protection, or the story got morphed to where she was taking them and killing them or whatever, but that's where it gets a little hazy. But anyways, those were in there. Then you have, and so Satan was mostly linked with wrath because he really liked to stir a pot, but he wanted to cause hate. So Lucifer definitely was pride. And so he would hit that conceited, no regard for anybody else, just self himself. And then you would have Lucifer, who would be all about wrath, causing as much hate, and then he would get them to battle each other. And then you had Asmodeus. Now, Asmodeus was all about lust. Unfortunately, not Asmodeus was based off of some stories as well, and you can hear it in, like, I think the movie Supernatural does some of those, and I'm not getting any kickback on any of that, but it is the sin of lust, and often appears with three heads, a human, a ram, and a bull. He also rides a dragon, so it's closely linked to the winged dragon, which is about envy as well. So they say, the story goes, that the fallen sisters of the underworld, that he is closely linked to envy, which is a bizuth. And so he likes to connect with her because they are the wings and they have dragons. Asmodeus fell in love with them. A different woman, which was on the earthly plane, named Sarah, prevented anyone else from marrying her. He killed 7 of her husbands just to keep that. So it was very linked to the envy and the jealousy and wrath. Well, he was really on for the lust. He loved it. He killed, like I said, 7 of them. But the 8th one, which the story goes is Tobias, he escaped. Now, Tobias went to an archangel, Gabriel, and Gabriel was the one who helped protect by giving him an alchemy spell to prevent Asmodeus from ever getting close to another one of his wives. The smell from the offering actually made him flee. So there was a weakness, and I'll tell you that on another one. There was a weakness, and Archangel Angel Gabriel gave this to Tobias, and I believe this one is in Corinthians 1, and you could probably read up on it. And I like to do little. I could give you little clippets of, oh, well, look at it in this in like lust. You could find some of the 7 deadly sins in 2 Timothy, but you really need to read the whole chapter, the whole 2nd chapter, to really understand and get the context of it. I can pull out any little verse and make it fit to what I'm talking about, but you need to get the full understanding and not break up the context. Then you need to go in and read the whole chapter. So some people also think that Asmodeus was never an angel. He was instead a creature half human and half demon, which actually can go into my Scandinavian, where Loki actually came down and had fornications with the animals down here, and you would get your like griffin, and you would get your mixed breeds and half humans, half demons. So you could get like your succubuses and stuff. So Asmodeus is one that's connected to when the succubus actually was created, because he was able to fornicate with the animals down here. Right? Then you have Mamoon. Now, Mamoon was associated with greed. He was originally more of a concept, but eventually in Middle Ages, they kind of gave him to a link, and greed was all about materialistic things. His specifically, this picture was associated with money and currency. So Mammon is greed in itself that driven to create this ambiance of making you extremely driven to still take abundance from other people. And his was actually money, but in the original text in Genesis and Leviticus was currency, abundance. Abundance is currency. And so you can't take money when you go into the other planes in the other world, as much as a lot of past civilizations would use gold and shiny objects, but those were more of an abundance. And then you have Belphegor, and Belphegor was associated with sloth, which means, sloth, procrastination, failure, just lazy, right? And it's not that, it's a failure to keep going forward. And he used deceptions and manipulations, and it really made up for his sin being classified as not a super sin. Is it was all about, how do I deceive and manipulate other people to think that this is what I'm doing, and I'd get them to do the work for me. In essence, tricking somebody or spreading this illusion that you're really enlightening and that you're holy and that you're on the right path is part of that sin, because you follow that they lead you astray. And if you summon him, he'll take away any form that you need. He will morph himself, skin shape, whatever he needed to do, he spins. So we see that now in the narrative, that we'll spin the illusion that this is truth and this is facts, and we don't really need it, but you'll believe it if I tell it to you. And there's a game a long time ago that used to be called Balderdash, and it was, how can you lie the best? And that's pretty much what his craft was lying. Sloth was all about lying and creating this manipulation and deceiving, that you will do the work and maybe I'll benefit from that, but I'm really not going to be working on my own enlightenment at all. And I'll get you to do it for me. Now, the next one is, I really, really love to say this name, and I don't know why. It kind of rolls off your tongue very nicely, but Beelzebub. This guy, now, Beelzebub is all about sloth, but he's nonsense. Well, he really kind of is full of nonsense, but he's the lord of really gluttony. I mean, he was associated with sloth, but gluttony is really something that he liked. He loved to be overindulgent. He doesn't exactly have a domain really, but he focuses morely on gluttony. And he's associated with things that can fly. Of course, he loves that, since he's portrayed with wings most of the time. So it's ironic that Lucifer and Satan would have wings. Satan more than anything, but Beelzebub is the one that has the most, that's always pictured with wings, and they're bat-like wings. He appears in other civilizations, and he is crucial in the Solomon Testaments, as one of the fallen angels, being mostly closely associated with Lucifer and helping as many 200. They said he helped 200 of the others that wanted to leave heaven and come down, which is written in Leviticus, but also in Revelations. So Beelzebub is basically closely linked to Gluttony, which is an overindulgence, which is part of addiction. If I can get you addicted to moving on anything besides moving forward in your soul, besides going the right path, then I've obtained my goal. And then you have, which is Leviathan. Now, some people may recognize this as those stories that you have in, you know, supernatural, or some of these modern shows that show about Leviathan being it. And some of that is real. Real, but there are facts to some of the storytelling in that. I mean, there's always some facts to a myth. But this is also seen as a sea monster in some Greek mythology. But in Christianity, and mine would be a different mine. My Scandinavian would probably look at a Leviathan as the Fenrir, which is the god killer. So some people would recognize him that. And in Christianity, though, Leviathans are the sin of envy. Leviathan is kind of like a guard to the gates of that. So when I say that is envy is all about being extremely jealous, like I said before. And the seven deadly sins is extreme to where they will like actually want to thrive to cause actual ill or death. And then the counterbalance of that is actually your underworld girl, well, your fallen prince, that is Leviathan, that is the guardians of the gate of hell. And they are so envious, they will open it up. They will open it and lead you either to purgatory or the hell itself, or what I call what's Groundhog Day. And that's kind of like a purgatory, but it is a repetitiveness over and over and over again. And some people in some denominations may say this is it. And even in Buddhists, they won't make it as disastrous and dangerous or hell-bent or hurt or such a catastrophe crisis. But Buddhists would be like, no, you will keep coming back as reincarnation over and over and over until your soul meets mastery of these sins that you will then transcend, and you will no longer keep going through hell. So when we say Leviathan, Leviathans will open up their mouth, and that is what the Leviathan's mouth is. It opens up. And even in Anglo-Saxon time, then you could see that it was still then back in Leviathan's revelations have this. And then it is noted very strongly in the Solomon Testament that he is, they open up their mouth and then they ingest you. And so lust, but envy is probably one of the worst ones, and that is in his domain that he loves to be on. And then you have all your seven. So when I sit there and I talk about the seven, and how this is linked to ego, and that's really what it was, is how are these linked to ego? We have our seven deadly sins. And then you have your seven sisters of the underworld that counterbalance that, but then you have their match, which is the seven fallen princes, and they all come together. And then you have, your seven biblical texts that you could reach out to, but then you're going to have to do some kind of trials and tribulations as well. And that is the next chapter that I will do, is the seven trials. Now there are seven trials, but there are also seven counterbalances to these negatives, which are, I classify as the dark. And so when I say it's the dark, it's more of the negative driven, but it with a positive charge. So if we're going to go down to science, then we're talking about quantum physics. And if we're going to talk about quantum physics, you got to talk about the positive and the negative charge. But then there's a neutron and in the neutral space, and the neutral space is in the middle. A lot of the times you could hear some therapeutic terms called dialectics, and that is the wise mind envelopes is in the middle of your logic and your emotional side. And that's kind of how it can be. But Buddhist and Zen is all about how do we get into a space of enlightenment when these negative charges are around us. And so they have the infinity symbol. So it's constantly going around and around and around. But it goes around in a certain speed. And in the middle, which is your calm phase, which is supposed to be your wise mind, it is the one that slows it or speeds it as it goes around. And so when we talk, I'm going to bring up the light side first, and the light sides are all about that charge. So look at it when we talk about the moon is the dark side, and that is the one where our gravitational pull is balanced by how far or how close it is to Earth if we want to do astronomy. The same thing kind of is in this sense when we talk about the negative dark side of religion, souls, the seven deadly sins. And these are noted. I mean, there's not anything really different. They're just the names and the characteristics than in any other denomination from the beginning of time, that things were written down, and storytelling, because these are linked to Native Americans, because I will do that on some other sections too. There is Native American in some of these, and these are trials, so they're not looking at them as negative. Like my Scandinavian wouldn't look at some of these as negative. It's more of, oh, well, the trickster's doing his tricks. Are you going to fall for him this time? If not, then we're going to need to go, and if you don't, then you just go on your way and you use something to balance it. But there may be another trick somewhere else, or there may be, you fall into, slothness. And then you have to face that and then conquer that. And so it's an internal enlightenment, as you keep going, but they're putting a form to it. Same thing with Buddhists. So Buddhists are doing the same, and they're talking about the wise and the things, and the enlightenment of the dark and the light, and using both of them, your yin and your yang. So your dark side is all about the slower moving, the negatives, the logics, the negative charge, which is the flat side of a battery. And then we're going to go to the light side, which is more the positive side, which is the arousal part, which gives you more of a stimulus part. So then you have your negatives that gives you your depressants. So we can look at it as mental health as well. And negative, your darkness that gives you your negatives. And I think that's a psychological, because it's saying that dark means depressed, but in actuality, it's just more of a lower beat, a lower frequency. And then you have your light, which is a higher frequency that's beating up here. So their waves are in the middle. And so now we need to work into it. So the next video I'm going to do, and now you're seeing where I'm coming in with the ego. And this is where ego comes in, is because if we can focus on these dark sides and maybe figuring out that they're not as dark as they could be, if we use some of the light ones to balance us out in the middle and use more of the wise, calming techniques on both sides. We raise the bar on this side and we lower the bar here, and then we're into the wise part. And that's how we keep our ego in check. And then, then we wouldn't have mental illness anymore, because then we would keep it constantly in check. Until next time, I want to focus on the light side, and then we'll talk about the trials in the middle, and then what's the significance of 77777, because there's actually 4 elements, and then there's 3 parts in each. And so then if you're talking about 777, there is a significance to all of it. And ego plays the biggest part, and that is your mind. And then your soul plays the second part, which is your heart. And then the physical state is here, and that is your body. So it actually is mind, body, soul. All right. So till next time, maybe try to go and do a mindfulness activity of sitting with absolutely nothing but a few chirping birds, and sit there for 2 minutes. All right. Talk to you later. Bye.